Experts are now calling for a new approach to global funding to prepare the next generation for various health crises. Jove Francisco has the report.
Barely a month after the proposed pandemic treaty was shelved during the World Health Organization's annual assembly in Geneva, members of the panel that worked on the proposed accord swiftly renewed calls for leaders to unite and prepare for the next pandemic. As monkeypox continued to spread in Central Africa, and the bird flu now affecting mammals, igniting fears of imminent human-to-human transmission, experts warn the world would most likely be overwhelmed by any new pandemic threat. This was underscored by members of the Independent Panel for Pandemic Preparedness and Response during a virtual forum attended by journalists from across the globe. Panel co-chairs and former world leaders, Liberia's Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and New Zealand's Helen Clark, led the release of an important report. This after the WHO Assembly failed to pass a pandemic treaty that has been in the works since 2021, when the world was battling COVID-19. The panel's postscript is scathing and instructive at the same time. They criticized officials who wasted the learnings from the recent pandemic, but also noted that political leaders play an important role in making sure the next generation will be better prepared during a pandemic.
Obviously, leadership needs to be applied to preventing disasters, not just responding to them.
So while we learn lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the more enduring insight or even wisdom is to expect the next pandemic to be different from COVID-19. We need to be prepared for the worst case scenario, meaning the next pandemic could be as severe as SARS and as transmissible as an influenza virus. When that happens, and we accept that in a pandemic, our common mission as healthcare jurisdiction is to minimize deaths.
While the panel still hopes a treaty will be approved, they presented other suggestions in the meantime, like more transparency and trust among countries, a new approach to global funding when a pandemic spreads.
On the issue of financing, we and others have estimated that you need at least that 10 to 15 billion every year to support low and middle income countries to strengthen preparedness. We say it should be additional to official development assistance, A, because there's not much of it, and B, because it addresses a global common good. We continue to advocate a global public investment model for this, where everyone pays in and country allocation is according to need.
A more equitable access to vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. A formal group of world leaders focus on pandemic preparedness and even the possibility of splitting the WHO into two functions, with one zeroing in solely on health emergencies.
And we posed an open question, and I stress it is an open question: should WHO be split into two organizations? One that is focused on emergency operations, as that work has to be done, and one that's focused on operational and technical excellence in health. Both are important and need focus.
The WHO recently amended its international health regulations and calendared the approval of the pandemic treaty within the next year. But in the meantime, it is being stressed that cooperation from world leaders is imperative to ensure the protection of 8 billion people. Jove Francisco, we are One News.
Yeah, what they're preparing for kasi is a global response kasi we should have learned our lesson coming from the Spanish yung Spanish influenza outbreak. Tapos we did not even prepare, we did not correct yung nangyari after, and we went straight to COVID-19 pandemic. And then the response was the same, medyo mabagal, di ba? The way we close borders, kanya-kanyang closing ng borders ang iba-ibang countries from Asia to Europe to the Americas. So ang gusto nila, there's a unified closure of borders. Some countries close their borders after 5 days, yung iba 3 days. Other countries allow their people to leave areas of infection.
Like what happened to us, di ba? Yung nangyari sa China before, they contained, di ba, in a certain area, yung spread nung virus, nung COVID. Naalala mo, the whole street was locked down.
Correct.
And we were reporting it. And like here naman in the Philippines, when magkakaroon supposedly ng lockdown, pinayagan pa tayong umuwi within 2 days.
2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 days, di ba? Nagpunta ng mga terminals, umuwi. Kumalat tuloy.
Yung infections mo was naka-contain, so tuloy nahirapan tayo to figure out ano yung areas ang hotspots. Tapos, maganda rin yung proposal nila na to split the WHO into 2 functions. The other function is that of an emergency response group. It's because, if you remember, nung itong pandemic, ang WHO simply gave guidelines and directives lang, and then the governments would implement it based on WHO guidelines. Pagkaroon ng, if they split it into 2, tapos may emergency response ng WHO, this gives them an actual team that can go around, di ba? And unified, naka-focus lang sila on response to emergency crisis.
Oo.
Parang sa movie
divided talaga dapat yung work.
Oo. Parang yung sa movie ni, pangalan nito, may movie ng ganun Contagion. There's another movie, Pandemic ata. Oo, na meron emergency response team, pero US kasi yun. This one kasi a world emergency response team.
I remember we were talking about this, naunsami yung agreement supposedly yung pact, di ba? Sa report din yun ni Jove before. And because yung mga rich countries, yung mga developed countries, hindi sila nagkakasundo as to what are they going to put in that tawag doon, yung agreement. Diba? And parang if they're going to wait pa doon sa agreement na yon na maging successful, the world anong tawag dito, yung adaptation o adoption ng ratification would require 60 countries to sign. So ira-ratify pa yon. So sabi nga nila, parang masyadong tedious. 'Di ba yung ganung proseso. So let's do something else. Tapos kailangan ng funding, etc. To be able to address the pandemic just in case magkaroon ulit ng world pandemic, 'di ba?
That's right. But tama yung report. We need a unified response already.
Yes, totoo 'yan.
Huwag na tayo maghintay ng next pandemic, 'di ba? There should be measures already in place if we detect a virus or a bacteria or a fungi or something that is a spore that is going to affect us all. Maaga pa lang, let's stop it na.
Yes, I remember there were also healthcare workers that went to different countries. Like, I forgot na kasi which country yung naubusan sila ng healthcare workers. Tapos nagpadala yung ibang bansa to help, diba, dun sa pagresponde ng pandemic. So, iba-iba yung mga naging resolution nga doon sa pandemic na to, yung COVID-19 pandemic. So, it's easy nga kung magkaroon tayo ng unified action on this. Para pagdating ng mga next generation, kukunin na nila itong template na ito. Diba? Hindi na tayo mangangapa in the future.
Well said, Counselor.